The silk of my wedding dress whispered against my skin, cool and smooth like water. My fingers trembled as I adjusted the delicate veil, watching my reflection in the antique mirror. The bridal suite of the Bellevue Hotel smelled of fresh lilies and expensive perfume. A scent that should have comforted me, but instead made my stomach twist with unease. "Stop fidgeting, Elena," my mother scolded, pinning another diamond clip into my dark hair. "You'll ruin the hairstyle." I forced my hands to still, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. This should have been the happiest day of my life. After 27 years of struggling, of cleaning houses and waiting tables to put myself through nursing school, I was marrying Robert Sinclair, respected doctor, heir to a small fortune, and a man my immigrant parents approved of with glowing pride. "You look beautiful," my mother said, her voice softening as she stepped back to admire her work. For once, the permanent worry lines around her eyes had relaxed. "Robert is a good man. He will take care of you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Take care of you. That's what everyone kept saying, as though I'd spent my life looking for someone to rescue me, as though all my hard work had been merely a placeholder until I found a husband to depend on. Outside the window, rain pattered against the glass, turning the garden view into a watercolor blur of greens and whites. The wedding was supposed to be outdoors, but the unexpected autumn shower had forced everything inside the hotel's crystal ballroom. Another thing beyond my control. "I'll go check on the flowers," my mother said, patting my shoulder before leaving the room. Alone, I finally exhaled, my shoulders slumping beneath the weight of lace and expectations. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, someone polished and perfect, with eyes that held no joy. I thought of Robert, probably joking with his groomsmen downstairs, confident and unbothered. Robert, who never raised his voice or asked for too much, who said he loved my determination, but subtly suggested I might want to scale back my night shifts once we were married. Robert, who had proposed with his mother's ring in front of both our families at Christmas dinner. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, expecting my bridesmaid Sophia. Instead, the door opened to reveal a young man I'd never seen before, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit that screamed money. He wasn't part of the wedding party. "I'm sorry, but this is the bridal suite," I said, frowning. "I think you have the wrong room." His eyes darted nervously around the space, never quite meeting mine. "Miss Russo, I have a message for you." He extended an envelope of heavy cream paper, unmarked except for my name written in elegant black script. "From who?" I asked, not reaching for it. It's better if you just read it." There was something in his voice, a tremor of fear, that made my skin prickle. Before I could question him further, he placed the envelope on the vanity and backed away quickly, disappearing through the door like a shadow fleeing sunlight. I stared at the envelope, my heart accelerating. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend it had never arrived, but curiosity, always my weakness, won out. I broke the unmarked wax seal and unfolded a single sheet of heavy paper. "The man you're about to marry is not who you think he is. Room 823. Come alone if you want the truth." My hands began to shake again, but for entirely different reasons. I read the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. A prank? A jealous colleague of Robert's? Or something worse? I glanced at the clock. 45 minutes until the ceremony. I should call Robert or tell someone about the note. That would be the sensible thing to do. Instead, I found myself slipping on the hotel robe over my wedding dress, tucking the voluminous skirt awkwardly around my legs. I grabbed the room key and stepped into the hallway, looking both ways before hurrying toward the elevator. The logical part of my brain screamed that this was madness, but a deeper instinct pushed me forward. The 8th floor was silent, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps as I searched for room 823. When I found it, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the door. Whatever waited on the other side would change everything. I felt it with certainty that defied explanation. Before I could knock, the door opened. Time seemed to slow as I took in the man standing before me. He was tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders encased in a tailored black suit that made Robert's designer wear look cheap by comparison. Dark hair, styled perfectly, framed features that seemed carved from stone, high cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with subtle stubble, and lips pressed into a firm line, but it was his eyes that froze the breath in my lungs. Dark as midnight, watching me with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously seen and stripped bare. I knew him instantly, though we had never met. Everyone in Chicago knew Dante Salvatore. At least they knew the rumors. Legitimate businessman on paper, suspected head of the city's most dangerous crime family in reality. His name was whispered in news reports about disappeared witnesses and bloody feuds. His face occasionally glimpsed in society pages alongside politicians and industry titans who pretended not to know his true business. And now he was standing before me, on my wedding day, looking at me as though he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Behind him, I glimpsed a luxurious suite. On the coffee table lay what appeared to be photographs and documents, neatly arranged. A man stood by the window, clearly security, his jacket bulging slightly where a weapon would be holstered. "Miss Russo," Dante said, his voice deeper than I expected, smooth like aged whiskey. "Thank you for coming." I found my voice, though it emerged as barely more than a whisper. "How do you know my name?" Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? "I make it my business to know many things." He stepped aside, gesturing into the room. "Please, come in. You're looking for answers, I believe." Every instinct screamed danger, yet I couldn't make myself turn away. "I'm getting married in 40 minutes. His expression didn't change, but something hardened in his gaze. "Are you certain about that?" Without waiting for my response, he turned and walked toward the arranged documents, expecting me to follow. The arrogance of it should have angered me. Instead, I found myself stepping over the threshold, the door closing behind me with a soft click that sounded unnervingly final. "Your fiancé," he said, picking up what appeared to be a photograph, "has been living a double life." He held out the picture, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. It showed Robert outside an unfamiliar apartment building, his arm around a woman I'd never seen before. They were both laughing. "That was taken 3 days ago," Dante said quietly. "His nurse at the clinic. They've been involved for nearly a year." I stared at the image, feeling strangely numb. "This could be innocent," I said, though I didn't believe it myself. The way Robert was looking at her was never how he looked at me. "Perhaps," Dante conceded, though his tone suggested otherwise. He handed me another photograph, this one showing Robert entering a hotel, not this one, with the same woman. "This is from last night. Your rehearsal dinner ended at 9. He was with her by 11. The numbness began to crack, pain seeping through the fissures. "Why?" I whispered, not to Dante but to myself. "Why show me this? Why do you care?" He studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "Robert Sinclair borrowed money from people who work for me, a significant amount. He's been unable to repay it." I blinked in confusion. "That's impossible. His family has money." "Had money," Dante corrected. "They lost most of it years ago. The house, the cars, the lifestyle. It's all maintained through debt and appearances." My mind raced, pieces falling into place. Robert's insistence on a prenuptial agreement to protect my interests, his vague answers about finances, his reluctance to let me see the household accounts after we married. "He's marrying you for your potential inheritance," Dante continued, his voice matter of fact. "Your grandmother's property in Italy. The one she left to you, to be received upon your marriage." The shock must have shown on my face, because something that might have been sympathy flickered across Dante's features. "How could you possibly know about that?" I whispered. "It was a family secret. My grandmother's small but valuable vineyard property in Tuscany, left specifically to me with the stipulation that I would inherit upon marriage, a traditional condition from an old-fashioned woman. As I said, I make it my business to know things." He moved closer, his scent enveloping me, expensive cologne with notes of cedar and something darker, more primal. "Sinclair intended to sell it immediately to cover his debts. You would never have seen a cent." I backed away, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was. Alone in a hotel room with a man who commanded violence with a whisper, dressed in nothing but my wedding gown and a hotel robe. "Why would you tell me this?" I demanded, finding strength in anger. "What do you get out of ruining my wedding day?" Something dangerous flashed in Dante's eyes. Perhaps I dislike seeing a woman like you deceived. His gaze traveled over me, not in the leering way I'd experienced from countless men, but with an appreciation that felt almost reverent. Or perhaps I simply want what's mine. And what's yours? I asked, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. The corner of his mouth lifted in the ghost of a smile. Sinclair's debt. Your vineyard. And now, he moved closer again, until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Possibly you. Before I could respond, a sharp knock came at the door. The security man moved with surprising speed, hand going to his weapon as he checked the peephole. It's Franco, he said to Dante, who nodded. The door opened to reveal another suit-clad man, his expression grave. They're looking for the bride, he reported. The ceremony starts in 15 minutes. Reality crashed back over me. Downstairs, 200 guests were being seated. My parents would be frantic. Robert, cheating, lying Robert, would be standing at the altar. I have to go, I said, suddenly desperate for air. Elena, Dante said, the first time he'd used my first name. The sound of it in his voice sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. If you walk down that aisle, you're making a mistake I cannot protect you from. Protect me? I laughed, the sound brittle. I don't even know you. You will, he replied, with such calm certainty that it seemed like an inescapable fate rather than a mere possibility. I backed toward the door, clutching the photographs. I need to think. He made no move to stop me, merely watching with those penetrating eyes. The truth can hurt, Elena, but lies will destroy you. Choose wisely. I fled into the hallway, heart pounding as I rushed back to my suite. Inside, chaos reigned. My mother, bridesmaids, and wedding planner all talking over each other in panic. Where have you been? My mother cried. Everyone is waiting. What happened to your hair? I looked in the mirror and saw a woman on the edge, veil askew, eyes wide with shock, clutching photographs that proved her fiancé was a liar and a cheat. I'm sorry, I said automatically. I needed air. As they fussed around me, repairing my appearance, I tried to think clearly. Could I still go through with this wedding, knowing what I knew? Could I stand before our families and friends and promise forever to a man who had been in another woman's bed just hours ago? It's time, the wedding planner announced, handing me my bouquet of white roses and lilies. I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. As I approached the elevator that would take me downstairs to my waiting future, I caught a glimpse of a tall figure at the end of the corridor, Dante Salvatore, watching silently, waiting to see which path I would choose. The elevator doors opened. I had to decide. I stood frozen between two futures. The elevator that would lead to my wedding, and the dark gaze of a dangerous man who had just shattered all my certainties. My mother gently pushed me forward, mistaking my hesitation for nerves. It's normal to be scared, sweetheart, she whispered, squeezing my arm. Every bride feels this way. Not like this, I thought, but allowed myself to be guided into the elevator. Just before the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Dante. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes, disappointment perhaps, made my stomach twist. The descent to the lobby felt like falling. My bridesmaids chatted excitedly around me, oblivious to my inner turmoil. Sophia, my maid of honor, finally noticed my silence and leaned close. You okay? She whispered, concern etching her features. You're pale as your dress. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. The photographs burned in my memory. Robert with another woman, laughing, touching, betraying. And Dante's words echoed, he's marrying you for your potential inheritance. The elevator doors opened to reveal the hotel's opulent lobby, where my father waited in his rented tuxedo, pride shining in his eyes. He'd worked double shifts at the factory for 30 years, to give our family a better life. Now he thought he was witnessing the culmination of all those sacrifices. His daughter marrying into security and respectability. You are beautiful, Piccola, he said in Italian, his voice thick with emotion as he took my arm. Like an angel. Guilt crashed over me. How could I destroy this moment for him? For my mother? For all the guests waiting just beyond those ballroom doors? The wedding coordinator gestured that it was time. The music began, Wagner's traditional wedding march that Robert's mother had insisted upon. The massive doors swung open, revealing rows of guests rising to their feet, all eyes turning toward me, and there at the end of the aisle stood Robert, handsome in his black tuxedo, smiling confidently, the smile of a man who believed he had won. My father took the first step forward, but my feet seemed rooted to the marble floor. A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd as the pause stretched uncomfortably long. "Elena?" My father murmured, confusion replacing joy. In that suspended moment, my gaze drifted beyond Robert to the emergency exit door at the far side of the ballroom. It opened silently, and Dante slipped in like a shadow, positioning himself against the wall where only I could see him. His presence was a silent question. I looked back at Robert, who now showed the first flickers of uncertainty. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that moment I knew. He didn't love me. Perhaps he never had. "I can't," I whispered to my father, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Papa. I can't marry him." Gasps erupted from the crowd. My father's face contorted with shock, but I was already pulling away, gathering the voluminous skirt of my dress in trembling hands. "Elena!" Robert called out, starting down the aisle toward me. "What are you doing?" I backed away, shaking my head. "You know what you did," I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "It's over, Robert." Before anyone could stop me, I turned and ran, not toward the lobby but to a side door I'd noticed during the rehearsal, one that led to the service corridors. Behind me, chaos erupted. I heard Robert calling my name, my mother's cry of distress, the rising murmur of scandalized guests. The service hallway was blessedly empty. I kicked off my heels, the cold tile shocking against my bare feet as I ran blindly, turning corners until I found a service elevator. I punched the button repeatedly, desperate to escape before anyone found me. Just as the doors began to close, a hand shot through the gap. Large, masculine, wearing an expensive watch. The doors slid back open to reveal Dante, his expression unreadable as he stepped inside. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Are you following me?" "Yes." No apology. No explanation. Just simple truth. The elevator began to rise, taking us away from the disaster I'd left below. In the confined space, his presence seemed overwhelming. The subtle scent of his cologne, the quiet power that radiated from him, the heat of his body so close to mine. "Did you know I would run?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He studied me for a long moment. "I hoped you would make the right choice." "For whom?" "You?" Anger flashed through my confusion. "You just destroyed my life to collect a debt." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I saved you from a marriage built on lies." The destruction was already there. I merely revealed it. Before I could respond, the elevator stopped on the 8th floor, the same floor as his suite. The doors opened, but neither of us moved. "You have a choice, Elena," Dante said quietly. "You can return downstairs and salvage what's left of your wedding. Sinclair will spin a story, cold feet perhaps, or a brief misunderstanding. People will talk, but eventually they'll forget. Or," I whispered, "or you can come with me." "With you," I repeated, incredulous. "A man I met 30 minutes ago, a criminal." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Be careful with accusations. It's not an accusation if it's true," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. Unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been admiration. "Few people speak to me that way. I'm not most people." "No," he agreed softly. "You're not." He held out his hand, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. "Let me help you, Elena." I stared at his outstretched hand. "Why would you help me?" "Perhaps I have my reasons," he said, his dark eyes revealing nothing. The elevator doors began to close, but he stopped them with a swift movement. "They'll be searching the hotel for you soon. Your decision needs to be made now." Behind us, I heard voices, hotel staff, probably alerted to look for the runaway bride. Panic surged through me. I couldn't face them. Couldn't face Robert or my parents or the pitying stares of 200 guests. Before I could second-guess myself, I placed my hand in Dante's. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and he led me quickly down the hallway. not toward his suite, but to another service exit. My things, I protested weakly. My clothes, my phone. Can be replaced, he finished. Nothing in that room is worth returning for. He pushed open the door to reveal a concrete stairwell. This leads to the parking garage, he explained, shrugging off his suit jacket and placing it around my shoulders. The lining was silk, still warm from his body, and absurdly large on my frame. You can't run through a hotel garage in a wedding dress without attracting attention. I gathered the voluminous skirt of my dress, trying to bundle it under his jacket. This isn't going to work, I muttered, fighting with the layers of tulle and silk. Without warning, Dante crouched and swept one arm behind my knees, the other supporting my back, lifting me effortlessly against his chest. I gasped, automatically gripping his shoulders to steady myself. This is faster, he said simply, and began descending the stairs, carrying me as though I weighed nothing. The solid strength of him was overwhelming, the firm muscles beneath his shirt, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the faint beat of his heart against my side. I'd never been held like this, never felt so simultaneously vulnerable and protected. I can walk, I protested weakly. Yes, he agreed, not slowing. But not quickly enough. We reached the bottom of the stairwell, where he set me carefully on my feet, but kept one arm around my waist, his jacket still draped around me. Stay close, he murmured, his breath warm against my temple. My car is near the exit. The parking garage was dimly lit and smelled of concrete and exhaust. Dante guided me swiftly between the rows of vehicles toward a sleek black car where a man in a dark suit stood waiting, another security detail I realized, like the one in Dante's suite. Franco, Dante acknowledged with a nod. Any problems? None, boss, the man replied, opening the rear door. All clear. Dante helped me into the back seat, his hand firm but gentle at my lower back. The leather interior was soft and cool against my bare legs where my dress had ridden up. He slid in beside me, his larger frame making the spacious car feel suddenly intimate. Franco got into the driver's seat, and the engine purred to life. As we pulled away from the hotel, the reality of what I'd done crashed over me. I'd left my fiancé at the altar, abandoned my parents, run away with a man who was, by all accounts, dangerous and powerful. Where are we going? I asked, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. Somewhere safe, Dante replied. Somewhere Sinclair won't think to look. The mention of Robert's name brought a fresh wave of pain and anger. He was with another woman last night, I said, more to myself than to Dante. The night before our wedding, Dante's hand covered mine where it rested on the seat between us. Men like Sinclair believe they're entitled to take whatever they want without consequences. And you're different? I asked, pulling my hand away. His eyes met mine, dark and intense. I take what's mine, Elena. But I'm honest about it. The car moved smoothly through Chicago streets, away from the familiar neighborhoods of my life toward the wealthy Gold Coast area. We pulled into the private garage of a sleek high-rise that screamed old money and discretion. You live here? I asked as Franco opened my door. One of my properties, Dante replied, guiding me toward a private elevator that required both a keycard and fingerprint recognition. Few people know about it. The elevator opened directly into a stunning penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan and the city skyline. The space was minimalist but luxurious. Leather, glass, and dark wood, with subtle art pieces that I suspected cost more than my annual salary. Two men in suits nodded respectfully as we entered, then discreetly disappeared into another room. I realized they were part of Dante's security team, always present, always watching. You can clean up here, Dante said, leading me to what appeared to be a guest bathroom, all marble and chrome, bigger than my entire apartment. There are clothes in the adjacent bedroom that should fit you. I blinked in confusion. You keep women's clothes here? Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. I keep necessities for various situations. The housekeeper stocks basic items in multiple sizes. Of course. A man like him would be prepared for any contingency. Why am I here? I asked suddenly, needing to understand. Why did you show me those photographs? What do you really want from me? Dante regarded me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Get cleaned up, then we'll talk. He left me alone, closing the door quietly behind him. I stared at my reflection in the massive mirror, a stranger in a ruined wedding dress, makeup smudged, hair falling from its elaborate style. A woman who had just blown up her entire life based on the word of a man she didn't know. I unzipped my dress with shaking hands, letting it pool at my feet like a deflated dream. The shower was blissfully hot, washing away the hairspray and perfume and tears. I stood under the spray until my skin flushed pink, trying to gather my scattered thoughts. In the adjoining bedroom, I found neatly folded clothes on the bed, simple black leggings, a soft gray sweater, and underwear with tags still attached. Everything fit perfectly, as though chosen specifically for me. The thought was both comforting and unsettling. I found Dante in the main living area, standing by the windows with a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He'd removed his tie and unbuttoned his collar, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin at his throat. He turned as I approached, his eyes taking in my appearance with that same intense focus. Better? He asked, setting his glass down on a side table. Physically, yes, I said cautiously. Emotionally, I'm still trying to process how I ended up here. He gestured to the sleek leather sofa. Sit, please. I perched on the edge, too tense to relax. Dante didn't sit beside me, instead choosing a chair opposite, giving me space I hadn't expected. You asked why I intervened in your wedding, he began, his voice calm and measured. The simple answer is that Robert Sinclair owes me a significant amount of money. When I learned he planned to acquire your inheritance through marriage and disappear, I decided to act. So this is about money, I said flatly. Partly, he acknowledged. But there's more. He leaned forward, his dark eyes holding mine. Sinclair has been involved in some questionable business dealings, using hospital resources for illegal purposes, selling prescription medications, activities that could put innocent people, like you, in danger. My chest tightened. I don't believe you, I said automatically, though uncertainty crept in. How well did I really know Robert? You don't have to believe me, Dante replied with a shrug. The evidence exists regardless. The police haven't connected him yet, but they will eventually. And you know this how? A slight smile. I have interests to protect. Information is valuable. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the sweater. So you're saying I was going to marry a criminal? You're still in shock, Dante observed. It's understandable. Stop analyzing me, I snapped, rising to my feet. The calm control he maintained was infuriating when my entire life had just imploded. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm feeling. He stood as well, his height making me tilt my head back to meet his gaze. I know more than you think, Elena Maria Russo. 27 years old, graduated top of your class from nursing school while working 2 jobs. Turned down a research position to take care of your mother after her surgery last year. Loyal to a fault, even to those who don't deserve it. My breath caught. How? As I said, information is valuable. He moved closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You're extraordinary, Elena. Far too valuable to be wasted on a man like Sinclair. And you think you deserve me instead? I challenged, refusing to back away despite the thundering of my heart. His expression darkened, something primal flashing in his eyes. Deserve? No. But want? Yes. The raw honesty in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could respond, a sharp knock came at the door. Dante's posture changed instantly, tension coiling through his powerful frame as he stepped slightly in front of me, a protective gesture that seemed instinctive rather than calculated. One of his security men entered, his expression grave. Boss, we have a situation. Sinclair's making a scene downstairs, claims his fiancée was kidnapped. Dante's jaw tightened. How did he find this address? Unknown, sir. But he's threatening to call the police. Let him, Dante said coldly. I have nothing to hide. He turned to me, his expression softening fractionally. Do you want to see him? The question surprised me. I'd half expected to be hidden away, my choices made for me. I I should explain, I said hesitantly. End things properly. Dante studied me for a moment, then nodded. Franco will bring him up. If at any point you want him gone, just say the word. The security man disappeared, and Dante moved to stand at the window, his back to the room, giving me a moment of privacy to collect myself. The gesture was unexpectedly considerate. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Robert stormed in, still in his wedding tuxedo, but with the tie loosened and hair disheveled. He stopped short when he saw me, relief quickly replaced by anger. "What the hell, Elena?" he demanded, taking a step toward me. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Everyone's still at the hotel. Your parents are frantic." Robert's gaze darted around the luxurious penthouse before fixing on Dante, who remained by the window, watching the exchange with cold detachment. "What is this?" Robert asked, his voice rising. "Did he force you to come here? Are you okay?" The concern would have seemed genuine if I hadn't seen those photographs, if I didn't now see the calculation behind his eyes. I straightened my spine, finding strength in my anger. "No one forced me anywhere," I said clearly. "I left our wedding because I know about her, Robert. Your nurse. The one you were with last night while I was rehearsing our vows." The color drained from his face. "Elena? I don't know what he's told you, but don't." I held up my hand. "Don't lie to me anymore. I saw the pictures." Robert's expression hardened as he glanced at Dante. "So that's it? You believe whatever this criminal tells you? You know who he is, right? What he does?" "I know who you are now," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "You were going to marry me for my grandmother's property. You were going to sell it to pay off your debts." "That's ridiculous," he scoffed, but a flicker of panic crossed his features. "Who told you about the vineyard? That was private family business. Does it matter? It's true, isn't it?" Robert moved toward me, reaching for my arm. "Elena, baby, listen." Before he could touch me, Dante was suddenly between us, his movement so swift I barely registered it. Nothing in his posture was overtly threatening, but Robert immediately stepped back. "Miss Russo has made her position clear," Dante said, his voice deceptively soft. "I suggest you respect her decision." Robert's face contorted with rage and fear. "You think I don't know what's happening? You've wanted that Italian property for years. The water rights alone are worth millions to your operation." My head snapped up. "What?" Dante's expression remained impassive. "Your grandmother's land borders one of my family's estates," he explained without looking at me. "It was her choice not to sell, despite numerous generous offers. So this is about the land," I said slowly, pieces falling into place. "That's why you saved me from my wedding." Something flickered across Dante's features. Frustration, perhaps. "That's part of it," he admitted. "But not all." Robert gave a harsh laugh. "You're just trading one liar for another, Elena. At least I never pretended to be something I'm not." "You pretended to love me," I shot back, blinking away tears of anger. "Was any of it real? Or was I always just a means to an end?" Guilt flashed briefly in Robert's eyes before he masked it. "We would have been good together. I could have made you happy, while sleeping with other women and spending my inheritance," I said bitterly. "What a dream." Robert's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're getting into with him," he said, nodding toward Dante. "Do you know what they call him? The ghost. Because people who cross him disappear." A chill ran through me despite the warmth of the room. I glanced at Dante, who watched Robert with the cool assessment of a predator studying prey. "I think it's time for you to leave, Doctor." "Sinclair," Dante said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Franco will escort you out." As if summoned, the security man appeared at the elevator. Robert hesitated, then turned to me. "Elena, please, come with me now. We can still fix this. Your parents will understand eventually," I finished, though my heart ached at the thought of their disappointment. "It's over, Robert." For a moment, I thought he might argue further, but something in my expression, or perhaps in Dante's, made him reconsider. He straightened his shoulders, attempting to salvage his dignity. "When you realize what a mistake you've made, don't come back to me," he said coldly. "You're throwing away everything for what? A man who sees you as nothing but a transaction?" His words hit their mark. but I kept my expression neutral until he disappeared into the elevator. Only when the doors closed did I allow my shoulders to slump, exhaustion crashing over me. "He's right about one thing," I said quietly. "I have no idea what I'm getting into." Dante turned to me, his dark eyes searching my face. "Are you afraid of me, Elena?" The question surprised me. I considered lying, but something told me he would know. "Yes," I admitted, "but I'm more afraid of what my life would have been if I'd married him." He nodded, seeming to appreciate my honesty. "You're safe here. Whatever you may have heard about me, I don't harm innocent people." "And what about not-so-innocent people?" I asked, unable to stop myself. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Everyone makes their own choices. Some choices have consequences." I shivered at the implication. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, moving to a sleek intercom panel on the wall. "You should eat something, then rest. Tomorrow we can discuss your options." "My options," I repeated, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality of my situation. No home to return to, no fiancé, and parents who would be devastated by my actions. "Do I have any that don't involve you?" His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're not a prisoner, Elena. If you want to leave, Franco will take you wherever you wish to go." The offer surprised me. I'd half expected to be kept here whether I wanted to stay or not. I don't know where to go," I admitted. "I can't face my parents yet, and my apartment is in your name alone," Dante finished. "Sinclair has no claim to it, but he knows where it is, which makes it unwise to return immediately. Of course he would know these details about my life. The realization should have frightened me more than it did. "Stay here tonight," he suggested, his tone gentler than before. "You're exhausted and in shock. Make no decisions until morning." It was the most sensible option, though nothing about this day had been sensible. I nodded, suddenly too tired to argue. Dante spoke quietly into the intercom, ordering food to be brought up. While we waited, he showed me to a guest room, spacious and elegant, with another stunning view of the lake. "This will be your room for as long as you choose to stay," he said, standing in the doorway rather than entering with me. "Mine is at the end of the hall. The security team has quarters downstairs, with at least 2 men on duty at all times." "All these precautions," I murmured, running my fingers over the luxurious bedspread. "Do you live in constant danger, constant awareness?" he corrected. "It's the price of my position." I turned to look at him, really look at him. This dangerous, powerful man who had upended my life in the span of hours. "Why me, Dante? Of all the women in Chicago, why involve yourself in my life?" Something shifted in his expression. A brief vulnerability quickly masked. "I've been watching you for some time, Elena. When I discovered Sinclair's plans, I couldn't allow it." "Watching me?" I repeated, unease prickling along my skin. "That's disturbing." "Perhaps," he acknowledged, "but necessary. You're connected to something important to me." "The land," I said flatly. His jaw tightened. "Yes, initially. And now?" I challenged. Before he could answer, a discreet knock announced the arrival of food. Dante stepped back, giving me space. "Rest, eat. We'll talk more tomorrow." He left me alone with a tray of simple but elegant food, pasta with a light sauce, fresh bread, a small salad, and a glass of red wine. Despite everything, my stomach growled at the smell. I hadn't eaten since early morning, too nervous about the wedding to manage more than a few bites of toast. As I ate, I tried to make sense of the day's events. In less than 12 hours, I'd gone from bride to runaway to... what? Guest? Asset? Prisoner in a gilded cage? Dante claimed I was free to leave, but where would I go? After eating, I showered again, letting hot water wash away the last traces of my wedding day. The bathroom was stocked with expensive toiletries, shampoo that smelled of jasmine, lotion infused with subtle vanilla. In the closet, I found silk pajamas that fit perfectly, making me wonder again about Dante's preparation for contingencies. The bed was obscenely comfortable, the sheets softer than any I'd ever felt. Despite my churning thoughts, exhaustion pulled me under almost immediately. I dreamed of dark eyes watching me, of running through endless hotel corridors in a wedding dress that grew heavier with each step, of my grandmother's weathered hands pressing a key into my palm. whispering in Italian, "This is your legacy, little one. Guard it well." I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover, and the disorienting sensation of unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, I thought I was in the bridal suite, that my wedding day was just beginning. Then reality crashed over me. After using the bathroom, I found clean clothes laid out, jeans that fit perfectly, another soft sweater, and even undergarments in my size. The attention to detail was both impressive and unnerving. I followed the smell of coffee to the kitchen, where I found Dante seated at a glass-topped table, reading something on a tablet. He wore a simple black t-shirt that revealed powerful arms covered in intricate tattoos, art that told stories I couldn't yet read. His hair was slightly damp, as though he'd recently showered. He looked up as I entered, his dark eyes assessing me with that same intense focus. "Good morning," he said, setting the tablet aside. "Did you sleep?" "Better than I expected to," I admitted, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Coffee?" I nodded, taking the seat cautiously. He poured from an elegant carafe, sliding the cup toward me along with cream and sugar. "Thank you," I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "For everything, I suppose. Despite the unconventional circumstances." A slight smile touched his lips. "You're welcome." We sat in surprisingly comfortable silence as I sipped my coffee, gathering courage for the conversation ahead. Finally, I set down my cup. "I need to know exactly what you want from me," I said directly. "No half-truths, no vague references to watching me or being connected to something important. Just straight answers." Dante studied me for a long moment. "Direct. I appreciate that." He leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed but still radiating quiet power. "Your grandmother's property borders land that has been in my family for generations. The water source that feeds both properties originates on her land." "And you want to buy it?" I concluded. "Yes," he acknowledged. "But your grandmother refused every offer while she was alive, and stipulated in her will that the property must remain in the family for at least 3 generations. I frowned. I didn't know that part. Few people do. It's buried in legal language that most wouldn't bother to decipher. His eyes held mine. Sinclair discovered it, though. He planned to challenge the will once you were married, claiming the provision was unreasonable. Could he have done that? Dante shrugged one powerful shoulder. With the right lawyer and judge, possibly. I couldn't take the risk. "So you intervened," I said slowly, "to protect your interest in the land." "Initially, yes," he admitted. "But when I began monitoring Sinclair, I discovered his other activities, and then I saw you." Something in his voice made my heart beat faster. "What do you mean you saw me?" Dante's eyes never left mine. "I had men watching Sinclair. They reported that his fiancée was unexpected. Not his typical type. Intelligent, hardworking, independent. I became curious." "So you had them watch me too," I said, unsure whether to be frightened or flattered. "Yes." No apology, just that same straightforward honesty. "The more I learned, the more convinced I became that you were unaware of Sinclair's true nature." I took another sip of coffee, buying time to process this. "And what did you learn about me that was so fascinating?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "That you volunteer at the children's hospital on your days off, that you send money to your parents every month, though you can barely afford your own rent, that you stop to pet every stray cat in your neighborhood." Heat crept up my neck. The level of surveillance was disturbing, yet the details he'd chosen to remember were strangely personal, even intimate. "You make me sound like a saint," I said, uncomfortable with his assessment. "Far from it," he replied, that slight smile growing. "You have a temper. You've made your neighbors complain 3 times about your late-night singing. You once threw a drink in a man's face at Donovan's bar when he wouldn't take no for an answer." I couldn't help the surprised laugh that escaped me. "You really did your homework." Dante leaned forward, his expression suddenly serious. "When I realized what Sinclair intended, I had a choice. Let him marry you, then deal with him afterward, or intervene before you were legally bound to him. And you chose to intervene. Why not just warn me anonymously? Send the photos in the mail?" Would you have believed them without context? Or would you have dismissed them as a cruel prank? He had a point. I likely would have confronted Robert, who would have denied everything. Perhaps convinced me the photos were doctored. So, what happens now? I asked quietly. What do you want from me, Dante? He studied me for a long moment. I want you to be safe, to make decisions about your future with complete information. And yes, eventually, I hope we can come to an arrangement about the property. An arrangement, I repeated. You still want to buy it? I do, he acknowledged. But I'm prepared to wait until you've had time to understand its true value. In the meantime, you're welcome to stay here as my guest for as long as you need. As your guest, I said skeptically. With no expectations, something dangerous flashed in his eyes. I didn't say that. Heat pooled low in my belly at his tone. Then be clear about your expectations. Dante stood slowly, moving around the table until he stood beside me. I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact, acutely aware of his physical presence, the subtle scent of his cologne, the warmth radiating from his body. I want to know you, Elena, he said, his voice deep and quiet. Not just the facts my men could gather, but the woman beneath the surface. And I want you to know me, not the rumors or the reputation, but the man. His honesty was disarming, and if I decide I don't like what I find, then you're free to walk away. I'll ensure you have the resources to start fresh wherever you choose. It sounded too good to be true. Why would you do that for me? Dante reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. The casual touch sent electricity